Awesome. We've got a great group. So yeah, we'll just dive right in. It'll be sort of Emily and I.
And who are you?
Oh. Thank you, Leslie.
Yeah.
I'm Emily Hirsch. I'm Annika Sweeney. I'm the Education and Outreach Manager for Whatcom Conservation District. I've been with the district since 2014 and run all of the educational programs. So coordinating from the social media to the website to events like this, to our big events like our Whatcom Farm Expo and our plant sale. But then also we have a youth education component that we're in four school districts, and we're teaching either 6th, 7th, and 8th graders or 4th and 5th graders with our watershed education program. So I do a lot of different things, and I love talking to people about the passion that I have for wild places and protection for our native species. I live up off the Sand Road. I have about 5 acres with Anderson Creek that flows in the back, and there is a crepe buffer on that creek. And I raise pigs and kids and chickens, and it's just a grand old time. And the Conservation District is obviously a big part of my life, both in work and at home. So I don't have any pictures of my place in this slideshow, which I usually do. I always said that I needed to have baby animals in every slideshow, and I don't think this one has it.
No.
Disappointing.
Are there smokes?
Oh, there might be smokes. Might be baby salmon. Okay. So,
Actually,
there is. Oh, there is a baby animal. Okay. It's a test. So we'll get started, and first and foremost is thanking Nooksack Salmon Enhancement for letting us use this space. It's an awesome place for a classroom, and especially when we're talking about native plants, that we get to go outside and see both like a landscaped garden native planting and then a restoration native planting too. So that'll happen sort of towards the end. Oh boy, let's see if this works. Maybe, maybe not. Oh, there it goes. And first of all, we are on the ancestral homelands and unceded territories of the Nooksack people. And this picture was taken about 1,000 feet from here, and it is a creek. Does anybody know what creek that might be? You wouldn't maybe recognize the place, but what do you think, what creek would be about 1,000 feet from here? Yes. Squalicum. And this is Nisqualicum, is how the Nooksack people used to call this creek, which means always dog salmon place to get. And that prefix "new" you'll see in a variety of different places to denote always, and as an oral culture, the Nooksack people would be telling these stories, and you can imagine that a always dog salmon place to get was probably a really important thing to pass on. And so we would think that 1,000 feet from here, that Squalicum Creek would be a place for our dog salmon, our pinks. So here's another, a slide, it's kind of zoomed in, sorry it's so kind of fuzzy, but we've got Lake Whatcom here, and then this is Squalicum Creek, and some of the place names that the Nooksack people have been calling these different areas. And so who might think, if we're at the star, what do we think like that lake or the other lake might be? See, you're the geography people. There's above the Lake Whatcom. Oh.
Toad Lake?
Toad Lake, exactly. That's this one, which, oh gosh, and I'm not sure I can pronounce it right, but we can try. And that is the Chuanuk, and it means thunderbird. And then this one up here is, that's Squalicum Lake. So that's the fly fishing lake that feeds in most of Squalicum Creek, and mark on hand place is what that means. And you'll see the rest. So, this is Squalicum, and then I don't know what the one actually coming in up top there. What would that be? Is that Anderson? Maybe. But these place names, they hold a lot of geographic and traditional knowledge, and I always feel like if we better understand and communicate those place names, we can start to connect with that culture. So I just wanted to share a little bit about that. And these resources, you can go onto the Nooksack Tribes cultural page, and they have all these really cool maps and a lot of different translations for some of those place names. So I recommend as you start to explore that place. So I think let's see if we can make this work, but it might be that we need Cedar to do this the whole time, which is kind of annoying. So Whatcom Conservation District, we've worked to form partnerships with our community to advance resiliency for current and future generations since 1946. Here's another test. Who thinks they know where that picture is? I love geography and maps. So you can see Mount Baker here and the Twins. So it's kind of like looking east from Nugent's Corner, and that is the main stem of the Nooksack River. Very culturally significant, obviously, and you can see that intersection of farmland and floodplain and the challenges, obviously, that we must face in Whatcom County when we all need to eat and we all want places to live, and that stream needs a lot more room, right? And that natural sinuosity is so vital for the health of our salmon populations as well as our human populations. I guess I'll just go like this when I want. So yes, we work for healthy water, healthy land, and healthy people. Our vision is a thriving community that protects and benefits from clean and plentiful water, productive working lands, and resilient natural habitats. And how we do that is through a variety of different ways that we talked about a little bit already. We have our conservation planning department, which Anna is a part of, that we offer free and confidential planning to meet your farm goals while balancing those natural resources. And Leslie's been a part of the farm planning and conservation planning portion of our work as well. Education outreach, I think it's the best part of what we do, obviously. Yeah. So we have place-based learning for all ages, including tours and workshops and events. And towards the end of the slideshow, I'll kind of be talking about a bunch of our upcoming events too that are both for what do we do for adults and kids in the community. Then what we're here today, the gut of our talk, is our habitat and restoration programming, assisting with the protection and restoration of natural habitats for our Pacific salmon. And so much of the work that Emily does and our habitat team is really focused on the habitat restoration component of that work, as well as Nooksack Salmon Enhancement Association that we partner with on so much of our work. Okay, so Pacific Northwest salmon, obviously a very charismatic fish. Does anybody know what kind of fish this is? Oh, it's a salmon. But specifically, this is a chum salmon. And you can tell by this sort of vertical modeling and the coloration along its side. But these fish just play an irreplaceable role both culturally, economically, and ecologically as a keystone species. Salmon have fed those of us living here since the last ice age, including ourselves now. But these populations of salmon are just a fraction of what once were swimming here. So restoring this fish and the habitat for these fish, restoring that habitat is the easiest and most cost-effective action we can take to sustain these fish populations. So today we'll be really kind of focusing on those efforts. Okay, thank you. Way to read the room. So benefits of riparian buffers. So the land along a stream or river is just as important as the water itself. Right? I mean, we have to protect the land around those creeks, that fresh water. And this is called the riparian zone. It's sort of that transitional area between the terrestrial and the aquatic ecosystems. And that naturally functioning riparian zone will provide shade for the water to stay cool, cover for safe habitat, forage for insects and other organisms that are needed. So the benefits of riparian buffers for our salmon that need clean, clear, cold water is they're able to improve that water quality through the filtration of the riparian zone. It has a really dense diversification of the habitat by planting native plant buffers. Temperatures are moderated by the shade. Flood control we'll talk a little bit about, and that improved bank stability by reducing erosion, just the roots themselves, sort of taking control. So we've got some examples. This I think is pretty cool. Of the establishment of a riparian buffer. And you'll see this green arrow is pointing at that cottonwood, and it'll be in each of these pictures. So this is a stream completely choked with reed canary grass. Can you even tell that there is water there? You can imagine the fish trying to go up it, or just like running into reed after reed. And so this one is a stream choked by invasive species. So go to the next one. So there was a large woody debris was added. The stream gravels were put in. Then the reed canary grass was removed as best it was, and then replanted with native species. So this was, just 1 year later. Again, that little green arrow. And let's go to the next one. So then, 5 years later, it's like a functioning stream with gravels for spawning, great shade. You're starting to get all the large wood, so there's places for cover, real diversification of habitat. It's just really cool to see something work so well. And these were pictures Nooksack Salmon Enhancement Association has shared with us as we partner on so many of these different projects. But I just think that really kind of demonstrates the value of these buffers. Okay, next slide.
Oh, it's me.
This is Emily.
All right.
So, an overarching theme that you are going to be hearing throughout the rest of this presentation is that we use native plants in these types of buffers. So, a native plant is one that was here before European settlers came to this space. The reason that was the cutoff is because it's kind of expected that people would bring plants and seeds that they're familiar with. Since time immemorial, these plants have been growing in these soils, in this climate, with these insects and birds and animals. And so they have developed really unique relationships with those things and the environment themselves. That's another theme that we'll be repeating often in this talk. And we talked a little bit about the benefits of riparian buffers, and so this dives into that just a little bit more, in that we use native plants for riparian plantings. They do shade and cool the water. The right plants can do that year round. Think of a big, tall, 300-year-old western red cedar. They do act as filters and can remove some of those pollutants, whether it be running off on the ground or blowing in the air. And they use less water. A plant that's sited in the right place, that's well established, needs very little supplemental irrigation to make it succeed. And also, they tend to not need chemical intervention, because if a system is in balance, it has the right bugs, or it attracts the right birds to eat the bugs, and so on. And so, plants for water quality, yay. Next slide. And so just having land set aside, like these riparian buffers, does a few things in terms of flood control. One, it just has its space that water can spread out and slowly recede. It doesn't impact your driveway or your crop or your home. Again, the roots kind of stabilize the bank, so when water gets high, the integrity of those channels are kept intact. Slower water means those sediments and pollutants can actually settle out before being flushed off downstream, and downstream resources are protected. And so this is a nice picture because this is 10 Mile Creek, and you can see that both of these projects are an older CREP project and a newer one, took the stream or relocated the active stream channel and made it more of a natural kind of system. And so those meanders and the turns and twists, those also help slow down flow and provide some of these benefits as well. Next slide. And so we talk a lot about salmon, but really, I like to say, if you plant it, they will come. The pictures that are cycling through are all pictures of things that I've taken while I've been walking through a lot of these buffers. So we plant lots of different species, structure, leaf types, flowering time, and that's just going to bring a bigger diversity of the birds and the bees and the mammals. Wild places, we like wild places and wild things. The next slide, please. Plants can also help improve soil health. Soil health has been a big topic in the world lately. So having vegetation dropping all of the debris that it tends to do will increase soil organic matter. It can help break up compacted soils, which helps with infiltration, which is also a great way to deal with water and runoff. The plants attract, they also have relationships with not only things above the surface, but also below the surface. And so they attract and feed soil microbes. They also, some plants have specific microbes and mycorrhizae that they work with. The plants take carbon out of the air, they create sugar, and they exude it from the roots and feed these things in the soil. And then those mycorrhizae are actually, they can make nutrients that are tied up into the soil more available to the plant. They can actually reach deeper and farther for water sources than even the tiniest of root hairs can. So they store that carbon, they can fix nitrogen. There are plants that do that as well. So these types of things are all interrelated. Water quality, less fertilizer because the plants are feeding the soil is feeding the plants. Next slide. So even though we're using native plants in these buffers, we still have to think about where we're putting certain species. We want to match species with their optimal site conditions that match. I like to point out that there are regional differences even within species. A plant, a western red cedar in northwest Washington might grow differently or need slightly different requirements than in southwest Washington even. So I like to tell people to check multiple sources or look for information from the area that you are actually going to be working in. And this concept, right plant, right place, is kind of one of the keys to that low maintenance. A well-suited plant that's established, like I said, should need very little supplemental care. Next slide. So let's get out there now. Restoration projects that we'll be talking about are primarily going to be planting native woody trees and shrubs. We don't usually use emergent plants or ferns and that sort of thing because these are, those things tend to come in after the fact. We plant different types of plant material. So what you're seeing in this picture is a volunteer planting on 10 Mile Creek. And we use container plantings in those situations because they're easier to plant for volunteers. There's a lot of room for error with a thing like bare root plant, which are ideal for larger restoration sites because they're smaller, so they're easier to transport, and they're usually a lot cheaper. Next slide, please. So here are all the ways you can incorrectly plant a bare root plant. And I just like to show it. This is from the DNR publication, but there's a lot of ways to go wrong with a bare root plant. But that's one of the beauties of them being so inexpensive. Next slide, please. Another important aspect, so we can't expect the plant to do all the work, even if it's planted in the optimal site conditions. We want to make sure that we are prepping the site for success. So removing competing vegetation is probably the #1 activity that we would employ. Because while these native plants are really happy here and this is their environment, there are plants that have come from other places that also really like it too. And they don't have the same biological controls as the native plants do, and they can overwhelm areas. And so it's gonna give you the best chance of survival if you prep your site well. Next slide, please. Okay, recognize this, anyone? You can hit it again. This is Leslie's place. Hope you don't mind I used your picture. I thought you were like, I didn't want to tell you because I wanted to surprise you. Hit it again. So the Conservation Reserve Enhancement Program is probably our most successful and most popular restoration program that we offer at the Conservation District. It is fondly known as CREP. It is jointly funded by the USDA Farm Service Agency and the Washington State Conservation Commission. It's a voluntary program, so there's a lot of flexibility in how the buffer is designed. We want feedback because we're coming on a person's land, and we want to match what we do with the overall goals that the landowner is trying to achieve. For 10 or 15 years, you receive a payment from the USDA, so you get paid to grow habitat. How cool is that? Next slide. CREP, like I said, is wildly successful in the county. In our county alone, we're approaching 500 projects. That's 236 miles, I said, of buffer. And we've planted nearly 1.5 million trees in the county. And that just grows every year. And the last number there is stream feet. So those are 3,000 miles of stream buffer themselves. Next slide. So you don't have to be a farmer to enroll in CREP and be part of it. You might just want to protect habitat. You might come into our office and just ask some questions. We're like, hey, we got something for you. You might just want to get rid of blackberries, and you might just want to check, and that's okay. We'll take it, right? But like I said, it's voluntary and flexible, so we want it to be appealing to a bigger audience. Next slide, please. And so you might be a farmer that is told that you're doing some things wrong, and you might be skeptical of the people coming out to your property and saying, hey, we think you could do better. And that's the beauty, I think, of working with the Conservation District. Annika said education is her favorite program, but it crosses the line in all of our programs because that's really what we do. It's important for us to create a trusting relationship with the landowner, because oftentimes we are coming out to look at problems, and we want them to trust us to come and see those problems. And then what we offer is information and education, and we want to empower them to make choices that they can come to the conclusion that, yes, actually, we're not scary. We're here to help, really. And that some of the things that we say actually are working. Next slide, please. And the beauty about CREP, another beautiful thing is that sometimes projects are just too big for people to handle, and they don't know what to do. And CREP can actually do most of the work. We do all of the interaction with the Farm Service Agency. We do all the interaction with the landowners. We design the buffers. We write the plans. The program pays 100% of the cost to install the buffer. And then if you choose between 10 or 15 years, and for each of those years that have the agreement with the USDA, you receive a check. And sometimes it can be a nice check, depending on your soils. Next slide, please. So we recently, last year, the state set aside some money for salmon recovery. This is just another way to get riparian buffers planted. It's a little bit more flexible, we think, than the CREP program. You don't have to sign a contract with the USDA, which is a put-off for some people. We're approaching the end of year one, I think, for this program. We're in hopes that they will reallocate funding and that we will be able to continue to work with a bigger variety of people on riparian projects. Next slide. So we live in an altered landscape. Just cycle through all these. This is an animated slide. So because we live in an altered landscape, we have to manage it. And we think that we can combine management, productive land, and habitat. And so these are some of the ways that actually we've been able to work with other agencies and landowners to keep their lands productive and still have viable, healthy habitat. Next slide. We also replace fish passage barriers. We work with the NRCS, which is the Natural Resources Conservation Service, to improve passage for fish. Sometimes a culvert is kind of crummy. Sometimes the water shoots through too fast. Sometimes it might be too high and there's not enough room for salmon to get up velocity to jump. We have replaced 45 barriers in the county. We work a lot with NC to do some of this work as well. That's opened 44 miles of previously inaccessible spawning habitat for salmon. Again, 44 miles, that's a lot. And then included in that work is placement of 45 large woody debris features. And large woody debris, the large wood in a stream helps diversify the channel. It can help it can help hold the banks in place. It provides small habitat for the small fish, and it provides multiple benefits for the stream. And if you're interested in hearing more about some of the work that's been going on in Whatcom County, coming up in about a month, Daryl Gray, the project manager for NC, is going to be giving a talk right here. It is going to be both in person and online, so there is the opportunity to Zoom in if you register and get a link. And we would just ask if you do come to maybe offer a small donation to NC just to cover the room and their time. We like to support NC because NC supports us so well. Next slide. So if you don't have a big restoration project or a big piece of land that you want to plant all these trees in, native plants are great for your home landscape, right? For all of the same reasons that we talked about them being so well suited for these larger buffers, it's just the same in your home landscape. They're beautiful. They're water saving. They support the birds and the bees and the critters a lot more effectively. Every spring, the Conservation District holds a plant sale where we sell tens of thousands of plants every single year. And we've recently been holding the plant sale part of the plant sale right here. It's another partnership opportunity that we've had. But again, you don't have to buy hundreds of plants. This is a great way to get this type of plant material. We do sell the bare root stock. It's a great way to get that plant material at a low cost, and you don't have to go to these larger nurseries and buy 50 paper birch. You could buy one. Next slide, please. I mentioned the use of native plants in our home landscape. Recently, the Whatcom Conservation District has been partnering with Whatcom County to work with landowners in certain watersheds to convert their lawn to native landscaping to help improve water quality. This particular program is also very we do a lot, right? We apply for the permit, we take care of all the permitting, we provide the lion's share of the materials, the mulch, the plants. We help coordinate planting parties. The idea is that we were trying to foster a sense of stewardship within neighborhoods and help improve water quality in those watersheds at the same time. Next slide. I think you're up. So we're going to switch again. Thank you.
I have to talk about the federal program.
I get it. Awesome. Thank you, Emily. So the Natural Resource Conservation Service also offers a riparian buffer program, just new in 2023. The program incentivizes producers to install riparian buffers, and the producers are compensated for their time, the materials, etc. So I just want to bring this up too. So we've already talked about 4 different programs that can help get folks involved and help riparian areas. But we can help align the landowner with what is the best program that is the best fit for different situation, but I just kind of want to like, here are a lot of different options, but our technicians are able to share that with any of them with you. Okay. What I would be remiss to mention I know this isn't Riparian focused, but we have a wildfire preparedness program. It is currently Wildfire Awareness Month. I bet you didn't know that. It's a lot of months, apparently. It's also Teacher Appreciation Week and Public Service Month. But we have on staff wildfire risk assessment technicians that can come out to a property, give some best practices for your home, and then we also work with communities to better make those communities more resilient to wildfire. So it just putting out there is another resource that is not talked about as much as our riparian and our farm planning. So I just wanted to bring up wildfire. This is our Watershed Explorer. This is our youth program. And I just wanted to show, we have an interactive watershed model. This has a sand table that water pumps through it. And then a topographic model of the Nooksack River from Mount Baker to the bay. And we use it all over the place. This is actually, I think, from Lummi Nation School. We go out and we teach the 5th and 6th graders multiple times throughout the year. And we also bring it to NC's campus to help with their preschool summer camp program, and then in most 4th grade classes in Whatcom County. Okay. And then another one of our big events, this will be the 11th year of our Run with the Chums 5K fun run. With our Smolt Sprint, it's just another way to bring awareness around our salmon. We partner with NC on this one too. And registration is now up and live. We're doing it September 9th this year. And it's the run is actually on the BP property out near Cherry Point, in between like Point Whitehorn and Cherry Point. And it's a beautiful run, walk, very family friendly. We have some upcoming community work parties that we're partnering with NC. May 13th, so this weekend, Fish Trap Creek, and then May 20th on Terrell Creek. Yeah, so this weekend is out, it's at a new park in Linden, Dickinson Park, and we actually have a flyer for all of the upcoming work parties, so you can grab one of those on your way out. It's a great way to spend a Saturday giving back towards salmon. And a lot of these community work parties that are coming up this late in the spring might not be doing as much planting as invasive species removal. You're doing a lot of mulching, some more like maintenance in order for those trees to survive. Finally, our full speaker series schedule is out. We might be adding one in November, but today, obviously, May 11th, and then we have in June, disaster preparedness for livestock out at a beautiful farm off Mount Baker Highway in the wildfire theme, but some other preparedness pieces. On July 13th, that's actually at Alluvial Farms in Everson, so actually pretty close to where you guys are, I think. And that's a compost and conservation field day where we'll be walking a crepe buffer as part of it. They have 10 acres in crepe. And then they have amazing different composting systems for that. It's a pastured pork farm. August, sheep flock health and pasture management out off of a sheep farm on the Y Road. And then September, it'll be a farm funding opportunity showcase. We have a bunch of different organizations coming in to sort of all the incentive programs, all of the ability, all the different folks that are working to make farms successful in our local food economy. And then in October, winter readiness. Getting ready for the dark days to come, how to prepare our farms for the onslaught of precipitation. So don't even think about October because we're in spring and we are gonna savor it. So that's us. That's all we have this evening, but we will be doing a little walk and talk in a little bit and get all your questions answered. But actually, if you want to go to the next slide, I have them all queued up. This was my cue for Dory. If you want to come up, you can talk about NC and then talk about your farm. But I had your mission and this amazing slide.
spend a whole lot about NC. I imagine most of you know about NC. You know, we have a three-legged stool. We do restoration, education, and then stewardship. So our goal, we have 2 teams working out all the time. Last year they put in 41,000 plants. Our education goes from the 4 to 6 year olds all the way up to climb time with teachers. And our stewardship is, last year we did 41 work parties. So I'm really proud to be a member of NC. I've been with NC forever. That's the goal with the gray hair. But it's a great organization, so please, if you ever want to help, just come and help. So I want to share a little bit about our farm. And when Annika asked me, it was like, geez, you've been so involved with the farm, I could talk 2 hours about it. So I'm going to talk fast. I grew up on a farm in Wisconsin, and just to set it all straight, within my lifetime, it went from a farm dairy area where we had 30 dairies down to 1 dairy of 1,200 cows.
Where's that?
Somerset, Wisconsin. Freeway came from St. Paul, Minneapolis, right past Somerset, and now we farm houses on 5-acre plots. So that's in my head. Then we moved to Florida. John and I were kind of hippies. We went to Florida, and we lived on Merritt Island, which is a beautiful island by Cocoa Beach and Cocoa. When we moved there in '74, we could ride our bikes to South Merritt Island, and there was 4 or 5 different citrus orchards. In our 23 years, only 23 years that we lived there, they're gone. Those groves are now gone, and now they're houses with orange trees in between. So when we came here to Whatcom, it was like, holy cow, there is a vibrant ag community here, and we wanted to be part of it. And that's how we got involved with Bellwood Acres and growing apples. But as I came here, we started planting and we're all excited, but we started realizing that there was a little bit of tension between farmers and environmentalists and farmers and Department of Ecology and farmers and a little bit of other things. And so we got to thinking, you know, I worked the farm with my dad, and there was 9 brothers and sisters, so we all had chores to do on the farm. And I knew in my heart that farmers were environmentalists. You know, my dad loved his farm land like he loved his kids. That land was very important to him. And so I knew that farmers were environmentalists. And yet I heard things like, if I see a salmon in my creek, I'm going to pitchfork them out, and I'm not going to tell anybody, because they were afraid of what was going to happen to their land because of the listing of the Chinook salmon. So some of us got together and started scratching our heads and saying, what could we do? And we brought in the Conservation District, we brought in NC, we brought in the farmers, and we brought in WSU Extension. And we came up with a program where we could go out and talk to landowners. And I was lucky enough to be the project manager for those years. And so I could walk with the landowners on their land and see what fears they had, see what dreams they had, see what we could do. And then with my partners, like the Conservation District, who did all my administration and my technical support, or with NC that did my planting, we were able to do a whole lot of work to get the 10 Mile Creek very, very healthy. So I did that for 10 years, and in that 10 years, the 10 Mile Creek was meeting most of their parameters for temperature and water quality. In the meantime, we were taking a retired dairy, Bellwood Acres, a 30-acre retired dairy, and trying to make it into an apple orchard. Our first challenge was we had cows on the property because we rented it to another local dairyman. And we realized that the water running off the slab that the cows stayed on in the winter went into a pipe. And lo and behold, it came out in a ditch in the front of our property. And it went right downhill into the 4 Mile Creek, straight into the 4 Mile Creek. So, of course, the first thing we did was call the Conservation District. Little bit nervous about what we found, but knowing that the Conservation District was non-regulatory. So we went in there, and with their help, we got new gutters on the farm, and we figured out a way to take that runoff and bring it through a pipe into the middle of the orchard, and we did a swale where that water would just run through the orchard, fertilize my trees, but also permeate through the soil and get clean. So that was the first time that we really got to know the Conservation District. The 10 Mile Creek does run through our farm, and it was much like Kendall Creek. You didn't even know the creek was there. So we had a very small section, so we just kind of sat on it as we struggled to make Bellwood Acres work. So the first couple years, well, I went to work on the 10 Mile project because the farm was not successful. So we started out being a wholesale farm. And that's where you grow your fruit, you put it on a truck, you send it over to Eastern Washington. They unload it, which $50 a bin. They store it, they sell it, and they're supposed to send you a check back. That didn't work. So in 2002, with the introduction of the Honeycrisp apple, we decided that we were going to integrate our farm, become a retailer, and open the farm to our community. So that worked for about 8 years. You guys were great. People would come on our farm, and it was fantastic. But what happened is we had too many cars. All of a sudden now we had a real problem on the farm because there was too many cars. We couldn't get the farming done that we wanted to do because the tractors were in and out, and kids would see a tractor and run toward it. So we decided that we needed more property. So our neighbor came to us actually and said, you guys have to grow because I can't come in and buy my cider from you. So his property was on the guide and backed right up to our property with the 10 Mile Creek running right between us. So it was like, wow. But we knew we couldn't do anything with that property if we couldn't go from farm to farm so we could farm it. So we went to the Conservation District and asked them if they could help us build a bridge across the creek. So with their help getting the permit, building the bridge, and then planting this new stream, this new property, the 10 Mile Creek, with the CREP program, we were able to get everything and blend the two farms into one. So we enrolled in the CREP program and figured out how to incorporate the stream education with our farm tours. So that was a real asset because now we could not only teach people about how we grew our apples, we could teach them about how we were a sustainable farm for the salmon. In fact, we were the first stewardship partners farm for salmon restoration. So that was cool. With that new farm, we had another problem, though. We didn't have enough irrigated water on the new property. So we went back to the Conservation District, and they helped us do a farm plan that we could present to DOE. With Casey is a great person, that she helped us transfer some of our water right from our original farm to our new farm. So now the guide property became our new retail store, event center, and distillery. So that was fun. With permission from the Conservation District with our CREP program, we took some of the property out of the CREP and we put a trail through it with educational signs so that people could see the CREP project and then also understand why it was so important to have buffers along your creeks. So, in closing, Bellwood and the 10 Mile Project, which I really love doing, would not have happened without the Conservation District, without NC, and without the WSU extension. I am forever grateful to all those entities for their education, for their technological support, and most of all, for their never-ending belief in agriculture in Whatcom County and the farmers that make it happen. So, thank you, Conservation District.
Great storyteller.
23 years of living.
Anna, can you go ahead a few? Now it's frozen. There we go. Try that. Oh, this was your beautiful slime. And now we have.
It's me.
It's you. Leslie Heron, who is another one of our biggest fans. wants to share a little bit about her property. So thank you, Leslie.
You betcha. So I'm going to talk to you about more than the crap. I know, right? So this is our property. It's that same one that you saw the blue barn before, kind of a little bit different angle. The blue barn sits about right here, right on this one. And so I wanted to give you guys a little timeline. And so back in both 2000, and I'm going to talk about some linked programs. So they didn't tell me what I could talk about, so I just thought I'd just go for it. Their error. Anyway.
More prescriptive.
That's right, especially with Leslie. Anyway, so back in both 2014, when we were living in Shoreline and imagining not living in Shoreline, and I took a Cultivating Success course through Washington State University Extension. And one of the teachers was a gal named Bobby, who works for the Snohomish Conservation District. And so Bobby was talking about, oh my gosh, all the things. She's a beef farmer, and all the things that the Conservation District did for them, and blah, blah, blah. And she went to work for the Conservation District and everything. And so that was my first link, actually, with Whatcom Conservation District, because it was like, and there's conservation districts in all these different counties. And so we went and did some things with King County and Skagit County and things. And then in 2018, when we were actually ready to buy a property, I went back through the Cultivating Success program, kind of with different eyes and ears. And that, just if you're not familiar with Cultivating Success, it's an agricultural entrepreneurship program. And it costs like this much money, and you can bring like up to 3 members of your farm for that same little bit of money to come and learn all kinds of things, like how to build fences, and what is a livestock guardian dog, and how do you do a business plan, and just like everything, even like how to find a property and how to find out if you actually can put a well on it. I mean, it's just like kind of this, apples to zebras course. And it gave us courage to buy 23 acres. So we bought our property in October of 2018, and one of the very first things that we did was reach out to the Conservation District and say, what did we do? And so Katie Penke, who is the alluvial farms person with the pigs that you saw a picture of up there, she was actually working for the Conservation District then, and came out and walked our property with us and created a farm plan with us. And it was the coolest thing. So I ended up with this, if I can take my notes and do that with this great little notebook that I still have, that I will just show you briefly, has even like a table of contents, and it talks about things like our administrative part, and then it's got from walking our property, what suggestions they had, tips on water management, all this other kind of stuff, what is a farm plan. And then they gave us all of these cool maps. So we got all sorts of maps of our property, including topo maps and the water stuff, and then historical maps of what our property looked like in 1943 and things like that. And then it went through our water management and land management, assessment tools, what kind of soil types we have. And by doing that, then Katie was able to say, and you might benefit from this and this and this and this. And so that was our whole farm plan that we came up with. So with that, some of the risk areas that we had some potential erosion and water runoff issues, some mud management, oh my goodness. And at that point, we ourselves had some llamas, but we were actually helping out a farmer who had oxen, who needed a place for his oxen, and so we had some land management issues around, these oxen stomping around in areas. And then we had some neighbors who were having a little more problem with water and erosion management, and they had horses on their property that were really creating problems with a stream that was adjacent to their property, and they needed to pull their horses off during the winter. So the Conservation District helped us connect up. We have a horse property without horses, and these people had horses that were ruining their property. And so we ended up boarding horses through the winter for them for a few years in a row. But that created, again, more like erosion and land stuff. So it was kind of like this whole thing of like, how can we be part of the community and manage mud and manage manure and things? They looked at our animal units per acre and helped us qualify for some manure management projects and things like that. It also, the whole thing, it also looks at wetlands and fire preparedness and conservation areas, woodland and grassland, septic and wells and buildings, and just really takes all of it into consideration and then creates these are the opportunities that you may have that we might help you with. So our areas of need ended up being the seasonal stream and the opportunity for the crep, of which you see here. And some of the things that were amazing about that is our property is kind of like this sheet of paper. It's kind of like longer than it is wide. And we, and here we go. And, and here it is. So this is Mosquito Lake Road here. And the middle fork of the Nooksack is basically on the other side of our neighbors. Like our neighbors are here and the middle fork of the Nooksack runs right here. And we've got these streams that are coming down from the hillside up above. And we were like, and you can see that the one that comes from up above comes down and seasonally flows down the ditches, basically, on either side of Mosquito Lake Road. And then there's these outflows that go seriously, like, 2 house lengths, dump right into the middle fork. And so what we ended up being able to qualify for with the CREP is to take this seasonal waterway here and create this lovely buffer that runs kind of like a little shallow U-shape on the west side of our property. So usually when I think about CREPs, I think about these big, long, along this whole stream bank, very lovely kind of thing. And ours is kind of this funky little U-shape at the front of our property. But what's going to be amazing about that as it grows up is it will create a sound barrier, visual barrier, everything else, but it's also going to be protecting all of, any runoff from animals, right? It creates that buffer, but also, keeping that seasonal creek happy for the salmon. So it was kind of this win-win with all of that, which was really terrific. Some of the other things, I don't know which all pictures, okay, so my subtitle for this, because we're all friends in here, is does the CREP make my butt look big? But anyway, so we do have llamas, and one of the things, they are free range rescue llamas, and I didn't want them coming in and eating the little trees. And one of the things that the program does provide is fencing, and so that whole little shallow U shape has this lovely fencing that keeps the llamas out and doesn't keep the deer out, but the blue tubes keep the deer out of the plant. So they have gotten much bigger than they were before. So that is really great. I don't know, what other ones did you do? Okay, well, I'll get to that in a second. So some of the other things that we ended up being able to qualify for is the manure management. And so off the back of that blue barn that you saw the other side of in Emily's picture, off the back of this were some cottonwood trees and basically just kind of a slope that comes down like this. And so you're kind of looking at this would be facing south and this would be looking north. Anyway, so what we ended up doing is qualifying for a grant for some manure management, and we got an excavator down there through the referral program, one of the excavators that was on the Conservation District's referral list, and scooped out a part of this and got the echo blocks put in to stop that from eroding down into the manure management. And then we worked with a plan from another thing that was on the referral list, which was O2 compost. And O2 compost helped us design this system here, where we built a 3-bin turning unit, and then it has this just a little small blower that goes into these solid pipes, and then there's perforated pipes that stick out from here. So inside the bins is perforated pipe, and you run the blower on a little timer, and it pumps air through the compost. And so when we did have both the oxen and the horses on the property, we were able to, we'd put actually a kind of like a heavy piece of plywood across from the echo blocks to the top of that, and we could wheelbarrow dump the manure down into it and then bring the tractor up to it from here to scoop it back out and things. So that was great. So the Conservation District helped with their grant program for that, where we had to pay X amount of money on it, and then the grant program paid the other part of it. So that was lovely. What else did you have? This was a really, really not good mud management in the rainy weather. And so there were no gutters on this great big giant horse barn. And so when it rained, it just became a mess. And so through, not the grant program, but one of the
rebate program?
Yeah, the rebate program, thank you. We were able to get a couple $1,000s to help us, because with a barn this big, putting, come on down, a barn this big, putting gutters on it is like, oh my goodness, which is probably why there weren't gutters on it. But so we ended up with this lovely gutter system that comes down with these great big pipes that come down, and they're solid from the gutter down. And then what we have now is where those come down, they just came down to kind of like a little U-shaped thing here, or a little C-shaped thing here at the end. And now what we've done is extended with perf pipe coming out from each one of those downspouts. We've dug out with perf pipe underneath there, and then put the land back over the top of the perf pipes. And so now when it rains, you can actually walk along there without going up to your hips in muck, which is really great. And so we can actually get the tractor around this side of the barn now, you know, all through the whole year, which has been just amazing because we couldn't do anything with it before. So that was so some linking with some different resources, different people on the resource list to find the folks to do this work, and then the linkage with both the grant program and then the rebate program through here. So just so you know, timeline, in August of 19 is when we decided to go into the crop. It was planted in they did the prepping, and then in April of 2020 it was planted up, and then we went into the 15-year program, and so it will be maintained for us through 2025, which means that the first, I think it's 3 years that they come twice a year. And then the next 2 years after that, they come one time a year, and they actually like get everything all cleaned up from around the trees and make sure it's mowed and all that other kind of jazz. And then our commitment is that one time a year, we take care of that, you know, from that 6-year point on. So my requirements are that one time a year thing of doing some maintenance after the 5 years, and then one time a year I sign a little form that says yes, it's still crap, I haven't gone in there and put condos on it, and that we're not cutting anything down, and on my taxes I have to file a little 1099 form that says that they gave me some money. And just to give you an idea of some of the money, I think that is it $256 an acre a year that we get paid for ours, and that depends on soil type. So different soil types get different amounts of money. Also, I wanted to say that another thing we took advantage of was the property walk with Jenny Coe for the wildfire assessment. And right now we're in process of, we've taken all the stuff that is just basically tinder from right around the house, and we've changed. We had some some wood latticing that went around our wood deck, and we've changed that to now be 1/4-inch hardware cloth, and so so we won't have debris that blows under our wood deck and creates more fire risk and things like that. So that's something we've done. We did the barn gutters, the manure management, which started with a free tarp and then turned into what you just saw there. Scope creep. And then the one other thing that is kind of out of the scope of this, but definitely a link, we came to one of those resource nights that they spoke of that's going to be coming up in one of these months coming up, where a whole bunch of different people that do different things comes and talks about, what they do. And one of the things that we learned about with that was that it was actually easier than we expected to do solar. And so we did a link with Western Solar and through the USDA Rural Development grant process, which is federal, and Puget Consumers Credit Union and Sustainable Connections. With all of those different links through there, we ended up with about 40% of our solar paid for through what's called a REAP grant. And so if you're a small rural business, you can qualify for that. So that ended up being amazing. And then we went from spending, hundreds of dollars a month on Puget Sound energy bills to we spend probably about $1,000 a year on our 23-acre property for our energy costs. So it was amazing. But I couldn't have done any of that without the Conservation District going and then you could do this thing. And so it's lovely. You should make sure that you buy them cookies and invite them to your home, because they can change your property entirely. There you go.
Oh man. Okay. Wonderful stories. And now we would love to still go out and be able to visit the native plant garden and walk through some of those species, where they're doing their best, and the restoration site too. So, and we can, I think we should answer questions when we're doing that, or you can ask us as we're walking. It's such a small group, I think, that we can manage